Hello and welcome to another session of Daily Prelims Practice. Here we will take up MCQs based on important news and articles that have featured in The Hindu and Indian Express newspaper. Topics for today's discussion are displayed on your screen. Let's begin the discussion. The first question of today's discussion is based on this news which featured on page number 10 of the Hindu newspaper. News is about Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's week-long visit to the Washington. She is there in United States of America to attend meetings of IMF and World Bank institutions. Apart from several other bilateral and multilateral interactions, one of the main agenda of the minister is the second G20 Finance Minister and Central Bank Governors meeting, which India is hosting as part of its year-long presidency of the G20 group. Now, UPSC has been asking questions based on important international institutions and specifically World Bank and IMF. As in 2016, it has asked a question based on IFC's Masala bond. So let's take up today's practice MC. Question says, consider the following statements regarding World Bank. You have to identify the correct statements. Statement 1 says, the International Development Agency, that is IDA, is the oldest of the World Bank institution. Now this is a wrong statement, as it is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, that is IBRD, which is the oldest institution of the World Bank. It started functioning in the year 1945, while IDA was set up in the year 1960. Now second statement says, the member countries have an equal voting power in the World Bank institution. Now this statement is again incorrect, as the voting power of the members country in the World Bank is based on the economic size, that is GDP, in addition to their contribution to the IDA. Now third statement says the International Finance Corporation, that is IFC, lends money to the private sector companies of its member nation. Now this statement is correct, as IFC is the largest global development institution focused exclusively on the private sector. It helps developing countries achieve sustainable growth by financing investment, mobilizing capital in international financial market, and providing advisory services to businesses and government. So with this, as you had to find the correct statement, our answer would be D, that is 3 only. Answer for this PYQ is C, that is both 1 and 2. Now the second question of today's discussion comes from this news which featured on page number 14 of the Hindu newspaper. Now according to this news, the Controller and Auditor General has asked states to take measures to maintain proper accounting of subsidies, reduce fiscal deficits, remove revenue deficits, and keep outstanding debts at an acceptable level. Now UPSC has been regularly asking questions based on important constitutional bodies. As in 2022, it has asked a question based on Attorney General and Solicitor General of India. So let's take up today's practice MCQ. You have to consider following statements and identify the incorrect one. Now statement 1 says the salary and other condition of service of the CAG is determined by the President of India. Now this statement is incorrect. Now as you know that Article 148 deals with the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Now if you will look into subclause 3, it says the salary and other conditions of services of the Comptroller and Auditor General shall be such as may be determined by the Parliament and not the President. And pay attention to another subclause, that is subclause 5, which says the condition of service of person serving in Indian Audit and Accounts Department and the administrative power of the Comptroller and Auditor General shall be such as may be prescribed by the President after consultation with Comptroller and Auditor General. So while salary and other conditions are determined by the Parliament, administrative power is prescribed by rules made by the President. Now second statement says he is eligible for further office under the Government of India only after cooling off period of 2 years. Now this statement is again incorrect, as there is no provision of cooling off period. As you can see here in subclause 4, the Comptroller and Auditor General shall not be eligible for further office either under Government of India or under government of any state after he has ceased to hold his office. Now, third statement says CAG submits the report relating to the accounts of the Union to the Parliament of India. Now, this statement is again incorrect. Now, as per Article 151, Subclause 1, the report of the Controller and Auditor General of India relating to the accounts of Union shall be submitted to the President, who in turn shall cause them to be laid before each House of Parliament. So as you had to find the incorrect statements, our answer would be D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Answer for this PYQ is D, that is neither 1 nor 2. The next question of today's discussion is based on this article which featured on page number 6 of the Hindu newspaper. Article talks about the conflicting issue between forest conservation and rights of forest dweller. And it says that India must balance conservation efforts with the rights of forest dweller. And in this article, there is mention of Forest Right Acts of 2006, which is pretty much important from the perspective of UPSC examination. As in 2013, it has asked a question based on Forest Dwellers Act 2006, in which it has asked that who shall be authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual or community forest rights, or both. So let's have a look at today's practice MCQ. Question says, which of the following statements is incorrect as far as critical wildlife habitat are concerned? So you have to identify the incorrect statement among these 4 given statements. The first statement says, Forest Rights Act 2006 defines CWH, that is Critical Wildlife Habitat, as area of national parks and sanctuaries where it has been specifically and clearly established case by case on the basis of scientific and objective criteria that such areas are required to be kept as inviolate for the purpose of wildlife conservation. Now, this definition is correct. Second statement says, in order to notify a CWH, the Act requires state governments to establish that the presence of right holders is causing irreversible damage to wildlife and their habitat. Now, this statement is again correct. Third statement says the chief wildlife warden of a state will notify an expert committee for the purpose of identification of CWH in a national park or sanctuary. This statement is again correct as chief wildlife warden is entrusted with this authority. Now, last statement says CWH notification has to go through public scrutiny once consultation have been carried out. Now, this statement is incorrect. As in the existing guidelines, CWH notification does not stand any public scrutiny once consultation have been carried out. So, with this, our answer would be D. Answer for this PYQ is D, that is Gram Sabha. Inspiration for our next question comes from this news which featured on page number 11 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, in its review and based on the directives of Karnataka High Court, Election Commission of India has accorded Aam Aadmi Party the status of national party, while Trinamool, CPI and NCP have lost the status of national party. Now, functions and power of Election Commission has been a persistent theme in UPSC Prelims examination. As in 2017, it has asked a question based on duties and functions of Election Commission of India. So let's take up today's practice MCQ. Question says, with reference to the conditions for recognition as national party, consider the following statements. You have to identify the incorrect statements. Statement 1 says, in order to be recognized as a national party, a party must get recognition as a state party in at least 6 or more states. Now, this statement is incorrect. As you might know that Election Commission of India has been entrusted with this duty as per the Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order of 1968. Now, as per the clause 6b of this order, following are the 3 conditions for the recognition as a national party. Now, it says that a political party shall be eligible to be recognized as national party if and only if any of the following conditions is fulfilled. Now under this condition, if you will look into subclause 3, the condition is that the party is recognized as a state party in at least 4 states. Now second statement says, if in last general election a party wins at least 5% of seats in Lok Sabha from at least 6 different states, it is recognized as a national party. Now this statement is again incorrect. If you will see the subclause 2, it lays the condition that at the last general election to the House of the People, the party has won at least 2% of the total number of seats in the House of the People, that is Lok Sabha. And the party candidates have been elected to that house from not less than 3 states. So that makes our second statement incorrect. Now third statement says status of recognition as a national party remains valid for 10-year period. Now this statement is again incorrect. As you can see here in provision 6C that if a political party is recognized as a state party or as a national party, the question whether it shall continue to do so recognized after any subsequent general election to the House of the People or as the case may be to the Legislative Assembly of the state concerned shall be dependent upon the fulfillment by it of the conditions specified in the said paragraphs on the result of the general election. So after any subsequent general election, Election Commission can review this status based on the following conditions. And if a party fails to fulfill the condition laid down in paragraph 6b, they lose their national party status. So there is no provision of a 10-year moratorium or 10-year fixed recognition period. So with that, our answer would be D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Answer for this PYQ is D, that is 3 only. Inspiration for our next question is based on this news article which featured on page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper. Now according to this investigation, the 68 projects which are being funded by UN Democracy Fund are linked to the George Soros Open Society Foundation. And why it is concerning for India? Because India is the 4th largest donor of UN Democracy Fund. Now, as this investigation and the findings of this are not that important from exams perspective, but the UN Democracy Fund is. As the United Nations, its organs and its initiatives are important theme from the perspective of UPSC examination. As in 2022, UPSC has asked a question based on United Nations General Assembly. So let's take up today's practice question. Question says, consider the following statements regarding United Nations Democracy Fund. You have to identify the correct statements. Now statement 1 says, it funds projects that empower civil society and encourage the participation of all groups in democratic process. Now this statement is correct. And in addition to this, large majority of UNDF funds goes to the local civil society organizations. Now second statement says it works on statutory contributions made by members as per the size of their economy. Now this statement is incorrect, as UNDF subsists entirely on voluntary contributions from governments. In 2021, it reached almost $220 million in contribution and counts more than 45 countries as donors, including many middle and low income states in Africa, Asia and Latin America. Now third statement says the advisory board offers policy guidance and includes member states representing different continents. Now this statement is incorrect. Indeed, the advisory board of the UN Democracy Fund offers policy guidance and funding guidelines, but the board comprises those UN members states who have made the largest cumulative financial contribution to the fund over the previous 3 years. So representation from different continent is not mandatory. It is purely based upon the size of the contribution. So as you had to find the correct statement, our answer would be C, that is 1 only. Answer for this PYQ is C, that is 1 and 3 only. Now the last question of today's discussion is based on this news article which featured on page number 15 of the Indian Express newspaper. Now according to private forecasting organization, that is Sky Met Weather, India is likely to see below average monsoon rainfall this year. SkyMet also predicts a 20% possibility of drought due to the end of La Nina condition and the potential for El Nino to take hold. Now UPSC has been asking questions based on important geophysical phenomena. As in 2017, it has asked a question based on Indian Ocean Dipole. So we have taken up a practice question based on El Nino. You have to consider following statements and identify the incorrect ones. Statement 1 says it is a climate pattern that describes the unusual warming of surface waters in the western tropical Pacific Ocean. Now this statement is incorrect. As you can see here, in normal air, the temperature of western Pacific Ocean remains warmer when compared to the colder eastern part of the Pacific Ocean. The El Nino is a climate pattern that describes the unusual warming of the surface waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean. During El Nino, trade winds weaken, warm water is pushed back east towards the western coast of Americas, especially the South America. It is the warm phase of a larger phenomena called El Nino Southern Oscillation, that is ENSO. So it is not the warming of the western tropical Pacific, it is warming of eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. Now second statement says it returns every 3 years in general. Now this statement is again incorrect, as the El Nino event is not a regular cycle and they are not predictable also. They occur irregularly at 2 to 7 year interval. Statement 3 says during this event severe flood occur in Australia, Indonesia and Southern Africa. Now this statement is again incorrect, as Australia, Indonesia, India and Southern Africa witness severe droughts. So as you had to find the incorrect statement, all three are incorrect. Our answer would be D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Answer for this PYQ is B, that is 2 only.